On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me two turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nate the Effing Great. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Game Changer, and this is indeed day 2 of the 12 Days of Booking series. Of course, you can listen to the Game Changer on Spreaker.com, iTunes, Podomatic, Podbean.com, as well as SoundCloud, and on Mr. NTG1990 on the YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at RealEffingGame. And this time, you guys, we're going to be looking at how Kenny Omega, Mr. Omega himself, the man who would be taking on the Alpha Chris Jericho January at Wrestle Kingdom 12, will debut in WWE, or at least in my opinion. Alright, so when it came to Kenny Omega, there's been a lot of speculation as to who his opponent would be if he came into the company. Now, of course, a lot of people would definitely say AJ Styles due to the fact of how AJ Styles was basically booted out of the club on his last final days, which would have been okay, which would have been a really decent feud. I think that would actually have a lot to go off of. In fact, another friend actually suggested the idea of Kenny Omega versus Shinsuke Nakamura, whether it be for a title matchup or whether that be for just the hell of it. Now, the thing is, though, those matches are good, but there's only one matchup in particular that I would really love to see. And the fact of the matter is, we've only seen this a couple times, especially if you guys have been watching New Japan for quite a while. The opponent that I would like to see Kenny Omega face at WrestleMania would be Finn Balor. Yes, you got the current leader of the Bullet Club taking on the first leader of the Bullet Club. It's one of those stories that kind of writes itself, but I'm actually going to be looking into how I would book this matchup. So WWE, because it's going to be very difficult for you guys to do it better. Alright, so we start off at the Royal Rumble. What goes on with Finn Balor? Is he in the Royal Rumble matchup? No, not really. I would rather have him face off against Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship because A, he deserves his rematch after not losing the title, and B, because he's over Vince McMahon. You out of touch psychopath. That's really the only way that I can describe Vince McMahon at this point. Because age is not even the problem right now. It's the fact that he's out of touch and that he's a psychopath that really much rather talk about his junk or jacked up dudes than anything. That's just my opinion. So, as I said in my fantasy booking for Survivor Series, I would definitely have it be where Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar have a really good matchup. Not one of those deals where it's more in favor of Brock Lesnar, but have Finn Balor actually come pretty close to being the Universal Champion. Now, Finn Balor already hit a coup de grace. Brock Lesnar kicks out, and Brock Lesnar hits an F5, but he hits him so hard that he actually throws him out of the ring. Now, Finn Balor sets him up for a second coup de grace. And of course, this is where we hear the sporadic static, and we see the Bullet Club logo on the screen. Camera pans out, and then the person turns around, and it's Kenny Omega. Doesn't say anything, but this distracts Finn enough for Brock Lesnar to capitalize, grab Finn Balor, and hits the F5 for the 1, 2, 3. So this accomplishes two things. This accomplishes a setup for Finn Balor versus Kenny Omega. And this also gives Brock Lesnar at least motivation more towards WrestleMania. And plus we get Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar. So added bonus, it works. Night after on Raw, we see Finn Balor basically questioning, why did he do this? Why did he even get involved in my business? I know right now that he is dealing a lot with, New Japan, and Kenny Omega is definitely a great star. I faced him on quite a few occasions, and he actually says that he wants to get retribution on Kenny Omega because he did cost him his championship. So he makes a challenge to Kenny Omega for WrestleMania. Following week, we get an answer from Kenny Omega. He basically explains how throughout all of his career, he has done a lot of things. He's become, the IWGP Continental Champion, the U.S. Champion. He's had amazing matches with Okada, but one thing that he hasn't done, and this is actually a true statement, because I had to actually look it up. There's only been 2 other times that we've seen Kenny Omega versus Finn Balor, that Kenny Omega has never beaten Finn Balor. To my knowledge, I have not seen a match where I saw Kenny Omega go over. So this is kind of one of those things that's been eating alive at him. It's one of those things where it's like, I've done so much, but the one thing that I've not done is have. It's just, the fact that, the original leader of the Bullet Club has beaten me, and I have not beaten him. So Finn Balor, as far as the WrestleMania challenge goes, I accept, as long as you can run the gauntlet. And this is where things get really interesting. And it might get a little risky because knowing WWE, they probably would not go down this route. But let's just say that they do go down this route. Over the next couple weeks, we actually see Finn Balor taking on both of the Young Bucks, both Nick and Matt, and actually beating them, giving them also a little bit of a good exposure in the singles route. Because honestly, a lot of people know the Young Bucks as being a great tag team, but in singles action, they can be really good too. So this would be a great time for them just to come in and just really shine against Finn Balor. And then, of course, we get into the Elimination Chamber event. This is basically the match where if Finn Balor wins, he will get Kenny Omega at WrestleMania. Unfortunately, though, if he loses, then Kenny Omega will say, yep, nope, I'm not going for it. So Finn Balor comes out. He's ready to go. And who do we have as his opponent? The American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, I know this would be very tough because I know that Cody Rhodes was not very fond of how he left the company. But here's the thing. If you can definitely have this be a one-time deal and you definitely embrace who Cody was, not Stardust, keep any mention of Stardust out of it, but definitely talk about how Cody Rhodes was a former Intercontinental Champion, a former Tag Team Champion. He's the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The reaction would just be absolutely amazing. And just to have Cody Rhodes at the prime of his life right now, where he is just on fire, taking on Finn Balor, would definitely put a lot of bucks in the seats. Because, of course, people are going to be saying, well, who's this final opponent that Finn's going to be facing? Is it going to be, one of the other guys? Is it going to be Marty Scurll? Is it going to be somebody else? We get Cody Rhodes. And maybe by process of elimination, people will just think, it's got to be Cody. It's got to be Cody. So, of course, the matchup itself is absolutely phenomenal. We see the disaster kick by Cody Rhodes to Finn Balor. Finn Balor does his, well, they don't call it the Bloody Sunday anymore. It was like, 1460? I forgot what the name of that DDT move is. But Cody Rhodes is able to get out of it. Cody Rhodes goes for the crossroads. Finn Balor is able to hit the Pele kick. I would really love to see this move. I know it's a little bit risque, but if they pulled this off, it would be amazing. Cody Rhodes goes for his disaster kick, but Finn Balor catches him with a Pele kick. I just think that would be an awesome move, and if they pulled that off, that would be amazing. In the end, Finn Balor hits a coup de grace to Cody Rhodes for the 1, 2, 3. So we are guaranteed to have Finn Balor versus Kenny Omega at WrestleMania. After the match is over, we see Cody Rhodes and Finn Balor not only do a handshake, but just for the fans, they do a little too sweet. And in all honesty, what would be the greatest reward for WWE to give Cody Rhodes and convince him to come to WWE for this matchup? I would honestly give him the rights to his name. I think it's really stupid that WWE is basically holding Rhodes' name basically hostage right now. And I think it would just be fair just to say, hey, if you do this, we will allow you to have your name on independent scenes, on any other promotion that you want. You've given us so much, it's the least that we can do to show our appreciation to you. Now some people would say, but that's kind of a really hard marketing tool because the Rhodes name should really be synonymous with WWE. Well, not exactly, because with everything that the Rhodes family has done in wrestling, they should not be just contained in WWE. They need to be spread out, in all honesty, because that's just how it is. So Cody leaves, and Finn Balor, he's basically celebrating, and we see a final visual from that matchup of Finn Balor looking towards the WrestleMania sign, and he points at it, basically saying, WrestleMania is my next goal right now, is my next destination. There we go. So the build-up is pretty simple for Kenny Omega and Finn Balor. Obviously, the following night, match is announced, and Finn Balor comments on, hey, I'm finally getting my shot at Kenny Omega. And he talks about how he built the club from the ground up, and he can mention a lot of the people that he actually worked with to create the club. And that Kenny Omega, he has definitely flourished, not only as a single star, but also as a leader of the Bullet Club. But he needs to remember something, that there is no beating the original. And it's all due respect, but Finn Balor is definitely going to be bringing a different demon to WrestleMania and just building it up very well. So we go into the next couple weeks, and I know this is going to be a little bit, it's going to be rough doing these, but I really don't think that they should really expose this too much until the final few weeks. So definitely have some match previews and training is what I have in my notes. And what I mean by that is definitely talk about the matchup between Kenny Omega and Finn Balor. Definitely give it that sort of international flair that it needs to be. That it's going to be a very special matchup between the two of them, and definitely show a lot of the training videos that they are going through, because this is going to be one of their toughest matches to date, really. Now, obviously, for Kenny Omega, that might be a little bit pushing the line because his matches with Okada were really good, but having Finn Balor versus Kenny Omega right now could definitely be one of the best matches of 2018. Mark my words. We go into I believe it's the March 19th edition of Monday Night Raw, and they get a sit-down interview with Finn Balor where he, again, talks about, his past. He talks about Kenny Omega. He talks about the Young Bucks. He talks about this, and also, so Michael Cole would ask the question, do you feel intimidated by Kenny Omega, considering he is one of the best super wrestlers in the world today? And Finn Balor, of course, says, I'm not at all intimidated. If anything, I am more focused, and I am going to give Kenny Omega everything that I can give. And that is a guarantee. That is a promise. And it's going to be tough to defeat a demon. The following week, we have an interview with Kenny Omega where he talks about his rise from being one of the young guys in New Japan and being built up as first one of the leaders of Bullet Club, and then now finally becoming something that is just basically the face of what New Japan is. And he's definitely going to be there to prove a point, not only to the club, but also to himself, that he can beat Finn Balor. And during this night, we also have a one-night-only matchup between Finn Balor and Marty Scurll. Now, obviously, this would be one of those matches that would be kind of tough to do But I think that this would be a great final build-up to WrestleMania to have Finn Balor showcase his style, and maybe he even breaks out some new moves that he can use against Kenny Omega at WrestleMania by having him basically being utilized through Marty Scurll. Marty Scurll's still going to get a lot of offense, and they can definitely tease like the whole finger break deal during the matchup. After the match, Finn Balor hits the goes for the coup de grace, hits it 1, 2, 3. After the matchup, we could definitely have maybe have Marty Scurll take a cheap shot, breaks one of Finn Balor's fingers, just giving Finn Balor a little bit of a disadvantage going into it. And maybe that just shows that, hey, the club that they knew were, they were, all about class acts and just causing certain chaos. But now he definitely sees that there's a different side to Bullet Club that he hasn't seen in a while. So the final Raw before WrestleMania, we see Finn Balor coming out. He talks about his injury with his finger. He says, that's not going to stop me from competing against Kenny Omega at WrestleMania. Now, we get lights out, and then the screen comes on. We see Kenny Omega talk about, he basically just says, Finn Balor, you're not ready to face me. You are not ready for what's going to be coming. In fact, we are ready for you. Lights go back out, lights come back on, and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are standing in the ring behind Finn Balor. Finn Balor turns around, super kick by the Young Bucks. Kenny Omega hits his Omega driver, his electric chair driver on him. Basically, they end it with that. So WrestleMania comes around, Finn Balor versus Kenny Omega, it's finally here. And we basically established that Kenny Omega is definitely going to be playing more the heel here because he does an amazing job at that. Finn Balor is going to be the babyface. For Kenny Omega, in all honesty, definitely have the Bullet Club theme where you definitely have, just shotguns firing. Well, not real shotguns, but something like that. Just really making it so over the top, making it so great. And then Finn Balor comes out with one of the best demon entrances that they could have at WrestleMania because reasons, really. In all honesty, with everything's going on, I would definitely have, they could probably do like a Venom deal because it would match the whole black and white of what the NWO was all, not the NWO, the Bullet Club is all about, as well as, basically promoting the highly anticipated Venom movie that's going to be coming out next year. Or also they could definitely do Spawn, because why not? Spawn is actually a pretty good superhero after watching one of the movie series. So during the match itself, it's really good. These guys have back and forth action. Finn Balor goes for the coup de grace. Kenny Omega goes for his driver. We just see a lot of what we saw in New Japan, and we also see a lot of new stuff. Maybe Finn Balor does like a sling blade into a maybe into like a code breaker deal, or just Kenny Omega just flying all over the place because he's that amazing. Just really let them just go. Don't give them any script of what they want. Just say, you know what? You guys have this much of time. This is the result I want. Whatever you guys do in between then, it's your call. Just let them be them and let them do this great story. So during the matchup, Kenny Omega is down. Finn Balor is going for the coup de grace. Again, Finn Balor goes for it. Kenny gets out of the way. And then Kenny Omega goes for a clothesline, knocks the referee down. And they're thinking, oh boy, this is not going to end well. And it doesn't end well because the Young Bucks come from out of nowhere. Super kick, just doing super kick party like crazy. And then we see Kenny Omega hit the electric chair driver on Finn Balor. We think it's all over. Referee slowly comes to for the 1, 2. Finn Balor just gets his shoulder up. And of course, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, they are in absolute shock. It is one of those moments where it's like, there's no way that should have happened. No way. Of course, the Young Bucks take the referee down again. The Young Bucks get back in the ring. They're setting up for the super kick party again. But then we see Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows make their way into the ring. And now we have just so many members of the Bullet Club in there. And during that deal, we see Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, they look at Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, they look at Finn, they look back at Elite, and they smile at them. And of course, Elite's just thinking, oh man, we got ourselves a little bit of a, Bullet Club reunion. They basically go for the too sweet on the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. But then Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, they pull away. And they're saying, not going out like that. Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, they beat down the Young Bucks. They take them out of the equation. Kenny Omega is watching this, and he is in total disbelief. He is thinking, oh boy, this is not at all what I had in mind. We see Finn Balor finally get back up. He hits the dropkick into the corner. Kenny Omega is down. Finn Balor hits a coup de grace, and he looks to go for a cover, but then he just goes up again, hits a second coup de grace, and then he just decides, as an exclamation point, he goes for a third one. You definitely see the intensity just building up inside of him. He gets up, third coup de grace to Kenny Omega, just making it so that way there's an exclamation point of who he is and who Kenny Omega is dealing with. Covers Kenny. Ref comes to 1, 2, 3. Finn Balor beats Kenny Omega. And after the matchup is over, and honestly, they could even do this on Raw, but I would much rather have this happen after the matchup. We see Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, they come into the ring with Finn Balor. Finn is looking at them, and then they look at him. They hold up the too sweet signs, and then Finn Balor, he looks up, he smiles. Too sweet. This is the moment where we see Finn Balor, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson finally uniting as the club. Definitely making, and obviously it's one of those things, it doesn't really hurt to have this because finally they're getting something good out of Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson that we've wanted for a while. We get the match between Finn Balor and Kenny Omega, and we also finally get some kind of representation of what the club could be in WWE. So basically going through the year, I would definitely build up to have Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson win the tag team titles a little later on down the line. Then we see Finn Balor win the Universal title. I would probably have it at Money in the Bank instead of at like SummerSlam because I really want to have that image of Finn Balor, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson holding championships above their head, basically doing the too sweet and showing that, hey, the club has finally shown their dominance and made their presence known in WWE. So that's how I would book Kenny Omega's debut in WWE. Now, I know a lot of people would much rather have me see Kenny Omega win, and honestly, some people could definitely have that. But the thing is, even in defeat, Kenny Omega can look like a major star. You look at the 3 falls that Kenny Omega and Okada had. First one, I do believe, went through a 1-hour time limit. It was a draw, and I believe Okada beat Omega the second time. And then the third time, Kenny Omega defeats Okada. It's one of those things where it's like, even in defeat, Kenny Omega is just like Chris Jericho. One loss is not really going to hurt him. And even though it's happening WrestleMania, as long as he has a really good showing, that's what really matters. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would love to see Kenny Omega have a showcase matchup building up to WrestleMania, but the thing is, it's one of those things that I would much rather have them see Kenny Omega come in for one matchup and have him just wow everybody at WrestleMania. It's just one of those things where you make Kenny Omega feel like a big attraction like Brock Lesnar, and you're really representing New Japan proudly by respecting them and having just this absolutely amazing matchup. And in all honesty, during the, I would say, introductions, I would love to see them actually just allow them to actually throw streamers into the ring. Is it going to be a little bit messy? Well, of course it's going to be a little bit messy. But in all honesty, have it have that New Japan feel to it. Make it something that represents, this is still WWE, but we still respect what New Japan is and how they have created these tremendous stars. So definitely give them their dues. That's really the main thing I would want out of this. Don't make this purely WWE based, because that would just be absolutely stupid. Make it so that way it's like, yes, we're doing it kind of WWE based, but we're also going to add some New Japan deals to it because we respect their culture. We respect how they created these wrestlers. So, again, that is how I would book Kenny Omega's debut in WWE. What did you guys think? Give me a like, give me a comment on what you think. I already had one comment that said it was a bold move for me to do this one. And I know a lot of people would love to see Kenny Omega versus Finn Balor versus AJ Styles. Maybe that could happen down the line. Maybe it can happen at a SummerSlam, or maybe that could happen at Royal Rumble. Maybe it can happen maybe next year at WrestleMania. I think it'd be a really good matchup. But for right now, I just wanted to see the future versus basically the past when it represents the Bullet Club. These two guys are really good, and I think they would put on one hell of a matchup. So thank you guys so much for joining me here for this second edition of the 12 Days of Booking. Now, the next edition will happen on Thursday night. I will be out of town, so I will not be able to do too much in the way of podcasting except for one episode hopefully on Tuesday, because I know myself and Victory Bell, we've been planning on having this for a while, so that's going to be the only thing that happens throughout the week. But plan on Thursday to be the next edition of the 12 Days of Booking, and to give you guys a little bit of a preview on what you can expect. It's going to involve the Intercontinental Champion, it's going to involve the Alpha, and the Awesome One. So thank you guys so much for joining me here, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye!
We